This podcast is brought to you by Exergo Technologies, providing some of the most affordable and portable sports science technology on the market. Made by coaches for coaches. Stop guessing, start assessing.
Produced from the Cube Studios, this is Strong by Science. In-depth conversations about science-based training, sports performance, and all things health and wellness. Here's your host, Max Schmarzo.
I have a guest that needs no introduction today. He's a returning guest, and based on that laugh, you might be able to pick up who it is. It's the one and only Cory Schlesinger. Cory,
What up?
Thank you for hopping back on here, my man.
Nah, glad to be back, Max. Always a pleasure, bro.
Beard is looking longer than last time and even lovelier.
Yep, the head's a little shinier too, you know?
Well, so we're going to hop right into this podcast here.
Yeah.
I want to give you guys listening a little background as to how this all went down. So I was just in California doing a Mind Pump podcast. Shout out to Mind Pump. Thank you guys. Good crew there.
Unbelievable crew.
And, I went to go meet Cory for some coffee, and we were going to go get a workout in. So first off, we go and get coffee from Phil's best coffee shop in the Bay. If you're there, highly suggest.
Phil's Soul Train. Get it on the secret menu. That's the jam.
It's Cory's fake sponsor.
Yes. No, they're my sponsor. They just don't know it yet.
They don't know it yet. So I went to meet Cory at Phil's. And first off, I gave him these awesome directions how to come pick me up, and we got totally lost, taking two turns. But that's totally okay. And we're going back over to Stanford to go lift. And we're kind of warming up and doing whatever. And we each had some calls to make. And like 15 minutes after we're going to get actually to lift, and Cory looks at me and goes, "Hey, you want to do kettlebell partner passing?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." He goes, "Okay, good. We'll do 3 warm-ups, and we'll go to 204. I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. You're strong. You can handle it." And so I did this partner kettlebell passing. And for those of you familiar or not familiar, check out my Instagram because Cory does a really awesome demonstration on a video screen talking about it, kind of like a whiteboard talk. We also have some videos of us doing it together. But essentially, we're tossing back and forth this 204-pound kettlebell. And I am still sore like 5 days later from this. It was disastrously difficult, but it was awesome. So, Cory, I've gotten about 805 questions about this on Instagram. Where does this come from, this kettlebell partner passing? Where does it all stem from? And tell us a little bit about your take on it. And also describe it too, because I did a shit job of describing it.
Hey, no worries. I got you, big dog. I'll go ahead and first say it was a 203-pound kettlebell. So just that 1 pound, that's the difference. That's the difference. But yeah, so this gentleman named Michael Castro Giovanni. I hope that's the correct way of saying it. But you can follow his Instagram. It's no shit. It's kettlebell partner passing certification. A gentleman named Tony Flowreel. That's my guy. He runs this company or this group called the Magic Flow Bus, all about flow states through multiple means and methods. But he was a good friend of mine and introduced me to Michael. And Michael's a big, strong dude. When I first met him, I was like, oh, okay, this is a guy who bangs some weights. And to be honest with you, I don't even think he actually picks up barbells, dumbbells, or anything like that. He just has a shitload of kettlebells in the back of his trunk. I'm like, this is an interesting cat from Jump Street. And they're like, Cory, let's go out to that beach volleyball pit right outside your gym, and let's teach you a little something. I was like, sure, man, whatever you got for me. And so they bring out these kettlebells, and there are those competition kettlebells from Kettlebell Kings, awesome kettlebells, by the way. And I just watched them. And to be honest with you, it was the only way I can really describe it is it was like dancing with iron. Like, I know that sounds weird, but it was dancing with iron. These guys, they were connected. They've done this multiple times. I mean, they're doing spinning throws. They're throwing it between their legs. They're doing all these flips to each other. And it blew my mind. I'm sitting there like, man, it's just dope. It's just super cool to watch. And so I told them, I'm like, yo, you got to teach me how to at least get to the simple part of this. And so they took me through his like a quick tutorial through his certification process. And from that perspective, I started playing around with it myself. Then I got away from it for a while. Season came along, and then I had some other interests. Then I tore my Achilles, and because I tore my Achilles, obviously I'm not doing cool, fun, or fun things that are plyometric in nature anymore. So through my recovery process, I was trying to find a way to bridge that gap. And, I was getting stronger. I was able to do traditional weightlifting. I was gaining my range of motion back, squatting, deadlifting, all the fun stuff. But obviously, the plyometric stuff, I want to get back to running. That's my guy, Rep. Hey, his name is Rep, REP. My wife named him that. Anybody that's listening, my cat just jumped on the Sphinx. He's a hairless cat. Dude is awesome. So, if you got anything from this, you got this really weird looking creature in the background, but he's beautiful and majestic. Anyways, so I was thinking, what can give me that plyometric like, that plyometric like action without actually leaving the ground. Yes, we can do some, loaded bands, and we can do some of that stuff, but I was looking for something that was fun, that was dynamic, that would allow me to feel that impulse and that high velocity eccentric loading. And immediately hit me like a ton of bricks one day, like, oh man, the passing. And so I grabbed my intern and we just started throwing. And from that, we worked up to the 202s. I wasn't able to truly do that in higher volume on that one day that I met Michael for the first time. But with my training with my partner, we developed a pretty good routine and we kept it pretty consistent. And we were able to get in 100 passes with a 203 without any drops or any stops. So, I think my wife is coming in right now. Y'all want to meet her? Come on in.
Cory, that's absolutely crazy. And for those of you listening, by the way, Cory's got these two hairless Sphinx cats running around in the background, and they hadn't shown up for about 40 minutes. We're on air before this, and all of a sudden Cory starts talking, and they're trying to jump on his back. So it's for those of you who aren't listening, I suggest you go check it out because it's actually pretty funny. On that topic, Cory,
Yeah,
we're talking about adjusting and changing how we handle load and how we can do so in a plyometric manner without actually having to do plyometrics. And so what I mean by that is when you're catching, a med ball, a kettlebell, or whatever you're doing that's catching something, you're going from a totally non-contracted, well, I guess non-loaded state into a rapidly loaded state. And so when you're receiving this kettlebell, and again, this doesn't have to be with a kettlebell. When we did it with a kettlebell, but the concept holds true for any weight. You catch it and you're not with any load at all. You rapidly absorb, and then you have to decelerate it and transition to someone else. So these kind of movements, Cory, how do you see these kind of fitting into a program? I know you've been doing the passes and the kettlebell stuff. Well, are there any other type of movements you were doing? I know we saw something on Instagram. You were doing like a split landmine catch.
oh yeah.
Different kind of movements where you're going open chains, so going in the air, or you're dropping a load and trying to rapidly catch and decelerate in a very safe way. Can you talk about some of those a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, think about everything you just described. And that's sport, right? That's running, that's sprinting. That's everything that you would do in any type of team sport or individual sport, to be honest with you. You go from relaxed to contraction as fast as humanly possible. And then in certain sports, you need to do it a lot better with a lot more force than anybody else. So with all these contraction and relaxation, I mean, that's the best people in the world do that the best, right? That's why you see 100-meter sprinters. They're not running tight with brakes on the whole time. They're contracting and relaxing faster and smoother and more rhythmic than anybody else on the planet. So that's what I'm trying to create in a slower sense. So that's what's cool about the kettlebell partner passing is it's not as rapid as sprinting, but it's just like if you're looking up the force velocity curve. It's a way of slowing down the movement, but it's getting those same type of plyometric actions, but like you were saying earlier, without leaving the ground. So once again, you can use all sorts of different means and methods. We're using the landmines and dropping them and then catching it rapidly. We do passes to yourself. So you do it into a high pull, tap the top just to give you some time to reorganize and then rapidly catch it at the bottom. So there's many ways you can do it. I plan on experimenting a lot in the next few weeks using different implements. One's going to be a yoke rack, in a similar landmine fashion. But you can do this with any type of loaded movement. But you've seen it all your career. I mean, you've seen it with medicine ball throws. The only issue is those medicine balls don't weigh a lot. And don't
Not
get me wrong,
204 pounds.
exactly. And don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for those medicine ball throws. But when have you ever seen a 203-pound kettlebell being handled smoothly, efficiently, and effectively, and more importantly, safe? And I know it sounds crazy, but it is really safe, especially if you're taught how to do it properly.
Yeah, that's the dynamics of it are so unique because everything we do in the weight room is almost ground based, ground based, ground based. What I mean by ground based is our feet are on the floor at the beginning, our feet are on the floor at the end. And we're not having to challenge ourselves starting from, in the air or unloaded to immediately loaded. And so I think there's something to do with that ability to catch, rapidly absorb, that is so relatable to sport. And it's not just in terms of the loading pattern where you have to rapidly decelerate. It almost becomes this, super maximal eccentric because of the velocity itself. But then there's also that rhythm and timing component. The first time I did these with Cory, we didn't post the video, but I caught it and almost fell on my ass. Like I went stumbling backwards. And because I wasn't contracted before I caught it, I wasn't braced. As I started doing it, you can get the rhythm and you're really getting this really tight, ready position, just like you're going to land from a plyometric from the ground. And so now we typically think, oh, we're limited in these kind of dynamic actions with, only plyos and our feet hitting the ground. But what else can we do to stimulate some of the other muscles in the same manner? And so that's what you're doing, Cory, with some of these exercises, is you're taking, the concept of, okay, a plyometric is really potent and powerful because it comes from, the ground, you hit and you're loaded from velocity and it's open, hit the ground, absorb energy, then you maybe explode or you just land and stick. But now you're taking that and applying it with weights, which it's, I mean, if you've ever done them before, it's a different kind of feeling too. It really is.
I
And I'm not
don't
a big, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if there's another way to replicate it yet. I mean, you could do some barbell squat jumps, but once again, like trying to jump off the ground with 100 some kilos to get the same type of force that you're getting eccentrically at that velocity, I don't think exists. And the one cool thing that we showed in the Jamboard session, like on that little whiteboard with our Instagram post, was the pass fail aspect to it. For instance, if you're doing a barbell squat jump, you could land wrong and it could be really messed up. But with these passes that you're doing, especially when you use heavier weights, I can't emphasize that enough. The heavier the weights, to be honest with you, the safer the passing
And
becomes.
let me pause this for a second
Go
because
ahead.
people don't see this, but Cory coaches the shit out of it. Like it's not,
Absolutely.
we're not in there just like, throwing a kettlebell. I think that's what people think. It's like, oh, look at these two meatheads decided to pick up a heavy ass kettlebell and throw it at each other.
Right.
Cory took about 20 minutes with me and said, hey, this is how I'm going to teach you. This is the rhythm of it. It was in a safe, controlled environment. And he really took the time to progress it in a way that made sense, that I was coached on. I felt comfortable as a person being involved in this. At the same time, he's not saying you got to do 204 pounds with your athletes on the first day.
Right.
Right. Cory's saying that, hey, Max, you're a meathead. You're here for one day. You better get your ass ready to catch 200 pounds because that's what we can do because we're not athletes anymore. But
Right.
I don't want to, gloss over the fact that you coach the shit out of it. Like you really coach it and you take the time to educate myself on how to do it. The ways you coach it are really important. We can talk about that after, about how maybe you start by passing it to me or me passing it to you and based on how that person feels. So I want you to finish up your train of thought
Yeah.
on some of that aspects, but also maybe after that dive into some of the coaching aspects as well.
Well, it's very similar, and to finish my thought, very, very similar to people who experience Olympic lifts for the first time. When you're trying to do empty bar sets with the clean or the snatch, it feels kind of awkward. But once you add some load, it actually became easier. So it's a very similar concept. But when you have lighter weights, then you could actually catch it and put yourself in a really, really hard position based off of the weight being light enough for you to be able to get it into those positions. But what's really, really cool, especially with the kettlebell, is when you get up in the weights that are above 100, if you don't catch it, there's no way to catch it terrible without it hitting the ground because there's no way you can control it from a bad posture. It's just going to go to the ground. So that's what the safe aspect about it that I'm speaking of. And so when you catch it and you have a successful catch, which there's no way you won't have a successful catch as long as you catch it in your center of mass, it will go right into your center of mass in a very safe position. And when you take a picture from the side, you're in the most athletic position that you would put anybody in, especially. And what's really cool is to see everybody's different biomechanics. For instance, when I have a guy with a really, really long torso, you see them squat a little bit more. When I see guys with a shorter torso like myself, I like to hinge it more. So it just makes sense. It's a self-limiting exercise to put you in positions that you are, number one, can handle and that you can repeat often. And so, yeah, that's what going with the heavier weights, in my opinion, not necessarily saying you got to go 0 to 100. I mean, obviously, just like anything that you do in a weight room, you progress it accordingly. But once you get to those heavier weights, to be honest with you, that is where I feel the safest with anybody around me doing the movements.
Yeah, that's you see that a lot too. And in my regards, what I'm talking about is when you put someone at a certain threshold of they have to do it because it's that level of intensity. You see athletes tend, or individuals in general, tend to perform it with better form. And so I've worked in Gen Pop, and I've worked with older adults, and I think I learned this actually mostly with older adults is they don't want to pick up a heavy weight, but once they pick up a heavier weight, their form gets a lot better
Yep.
because the other weight was so light, you could cheat. And
Right.
just to kind of go on, not a huge tangent, but I was working with some older adults, and they were doing a bench press. It was a very sweet lady, and she had like 5 pounds, and she was doing like a floor press. I said, "Is that easy?" She goes, "I don't know." I said, "Could you throw it at me?" She goes, "Probably." So, well, I think that's a little light then.
All
Like,
right.
if you can throw it at me, like let's add a little weight, so it forces you to get into a position where you're biomechanically your strongest, and that's what you're talking about. Is when you have this kind of load, and this kind of intent, your body self-organizing to put
Yep.
itself in the safest position as possible. And because there's the floor in the way, if you were to somehow catch it in a disadvantageous position, it would just go straight to the floor.
Right.
And I think that's an interesting aspect of this movement because you have that the floor is there and there's only so much room between you and the floor. And so there's that time constraint. Can I stop it before it hits the floor? So it's a great external cue as well for someone to be like, I need to rapidly transition this movement quickly.
Yeah, and it's the really special part about it is the creativity you can have within it. Like, don't get me wrong, barbells, you can do all the creative stuff in the world through loading patterns. But with this, you can go from flipping the kettlebell, you can go from just passing it where the handle looks like it's levitating in the air. That's the one that I prefer the most because I'm doing this for a performance aspect. The trickery and all that's really cool. But once again, if we're looking at this from a performance aspect, well, you're not going to get that with these little dinky kettlebells. Okay. We need to experience similar forces and loads that they're going to experience in sport. I'm sorry, you're not going to get that with doing max effort barbell deadlifts and squats because there's no velocity component. But now I have velocity and I have unbelievable or load and I have unbelievable velocity that I can not only accept, but I can repeat in a rhythmic a cyclical fashion, just like you see in sprinting and jumping and running and all the aspects that you see in sport in general. So that's what I think is really special about it is it's super relaxation into unbelievable contraction and then relaxation yet again.
So, and to make it safe, Corey, let's talk a little bit about how you taught me
Yeah.
and some of the coaching aspects of it. Because, again, the last thing I want someone to do is listen to this podcast and go, "Oh, hey, dude, let's get my bro, my athlete. We're gonna go pick up the heaviest kettlebell possible and throw it at each other and see what the hell happens."
I mean, I think
That's
we already ruined that with Instagram because people saw the posts and one or two things happened. They went and tried it, or they negatively criticize it because they're like, "Oh, my toes." And I'm like, "Well, it's a heavy kettlebell coming downward on top of your foot. That shoe ain't going to help, so it doesn't really matter."
And this is Corey was doing it barefoot, so Corey was like the true madman, fearless warrior Corey, who's throwing 203-pound kettlebells. And a good friend Max shows up to just lift some weights and do some bicep curls and say, "Hey, let's throw this heavy ass kettlebell at Max's groin as hard as we can."
Absolutely.
So tell me about the coaching aspect.
Yeah, so the coaching aspect to me, it's a lot. It's a deeper connection than you would experience with traditional lifting. Like for instance, you're teaching barbell squats, deadlifts, bench press, all that. It's they're within themselves. But this is a totally different aspect. This is absolute teamwork, just like what you see in team sports. There's the neck up component that is far greater than any other traditional weightlifting aspect that you could ever bring into a weight room, in my opinion. Um, it's a competition to make each other successful, not a competition to beat each other. So, what I mean by that is when me and Max were passing to each other, it's not you trying to survive. It's you trying to give your partner the best chance of being successful. What other, I mean, that sounds like team sport to me, right? But there's no other way I could replicate that in a weight room. Like, how am I going to bring those type of dynamics without doing some, weird team like military, like, whatever. Like this is something, I mean, what I think is going to be really cool about it is in the right setting with the right population. I mean, to me, this is a pregame routine. You can use this in and once again, just like other things that you use in strength, you could find uh, great ways to install this. You could use this in return to play, like I used them with my Achilles. You could use this as pregame to get in a flow state with your partner to be dialed in. You could do this in training to obviously for whatever aspects from the force velocity curve you're trying to develop in, or the stress response adaptation you're looking for. You could use with whatever load you got, but number one is the one thing that differentiates this between traditional weightlifting and the partner passing is the neck up component. So the very first thing that I talked with Max is the respect that we have to have for one another. And once again, this was all taught to me by an awesome guy named Michael Castro Giovanni. Follows Instagram at Kettlebell Partner Passing. But it's you always make eye contact before you begin, because at the end of the day, we are throwing an implement that weighs a lot at another human being. So every time, even if you have a failed set, you make eye contact so that you know you're throwing it to the other person, you're connected, and that we're both on the same page. Now, the first pass that I did with Max is I had him do a self pass. So instead of it looking like a traditional kettlebell swing, he pulled it just like you see with a barbell high pull or a progression to a clean. So he'll pick it up just like an RDL, nice stance, get into a good dip, pull it. Once he pulls it, then he's going to bring it back down and he keeps his hands on it the entire time. Once that you see that he develops a rhythm, and he's doing this in a continuous fashion, by the way. Once he gets a good rhythm with it, then you cue to gently let it go at the top and then recatch. Gently let it go at the top and then recatch. And at first, you'll see them barely let the fingers go, because once again, it is a weight that's flying in the air. But then you just start encouraging, as long as you see success and quality catches, you start encouraging longer hold or longer releases. Catch it at the last second, longer releases, catch it at the last second, and then relax. Once they feel what that is like, then basically that's all the real training aspect that you need from it. You could do this solo and then continue working up to great loads, just doing it by yourself. But now, once you want to add in the partner, you see flips, you see all these other crazy. We don't do that. The only thing we do is that what we call handle passes. So with the handle passes, I just want that thing looking like it's levitating in the air. So the way I instructed Max on how to pass it is he's doing his traditional swings ish. It's not necessarily like a full hinge, but it's right in the middle between a squat and a hinge, because he's pushing this thing at a trajectory that's almost like a 45-degree angle. So that being said, the first cue I gave to Max is when you actually release this thing, it's going to feel like you're setting something on top of a table, right? So you're setting something on top of a table that's chest height. And the last thing that should lead or that should touch the bell is your thumbs. Okay. Now you're not pushing it with your thumbs, but just like a follow through in basketball, the last thing that touches the ball is the fingertips. For us, since this is going to be the thing closest to the body, their thumbs are going to be the last thing that touches the kettlebell. And then there's other cues, especially the auditory cue that I like is when you let go of the kettlebell, you should almost hear this shing to it. So as you pull it up, you should hear it like it fell out of your hands on accident. This shing. And then that's how you know that you're not decelerating the movement as you're going up. If you don't hear that, that means you're grasping it a little too hard, and more than likely you're muscling it, opposed to releasing it at its highest point or at the point where you're going to have the most successful pass, and then it leads into a beautiful follow through. Once again, comparing it back to basketball, if I was shooting a basketball, I would never shoot a basketball and just flick it hard with my wrist without it going all the way through the entire range. So once again, partner passing, there's a lot of finessing to it, which there's not many other strength methods that requires a lot of finesse other than the Olympic lifts, in my opinion. So that's what's really, really cool about this.
Yeah, when people probably saw an Olympic lift for the first time, like a snatch, it probably looked pretty horrifying too,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it's very accepted as this movement that we should all do. You're doing a clean that you're catching, at your neck. And again, if you're an external observer, you're like, what the heck are they doing? Like,
Yeah.
is that,
You see the
um,
elbows pointing forward, you're like, that ain't natural.
yeah, it's very counterintuitive. And I think kind of like the moral of this conversation so far is how can we find exercises that challenge multiple things at once, especially rhythm, timing, and if we can make it partner in some way, then we just kind of take it to another level. And what I mean by that is you have this aspect of, this one-on-one ham with a partner. I want him to succeed. I want myself to succeed. We have the aspect that's a really unique loading pattern. And then we have an aspect that, it's something in the air. It's you're visually tracking it. And so you have all these different aspects involved. And again, no BS aside, like Corey really coaches it. It's not, he's like an Olympic lift. You don't just say, hey, pull that bar to your neck and hope you catch it kind of thing.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
or,
imagine seeing someone do high pulls with a barbell to each other, right? That
yeah.
seems kind of crazy too, is it not? But for me, I look at the kettlebell just like how I use it and how I train my athletes initially with resistance training is a kettlebell is easier to manipulate, one, and number two, it's always in my center of mass. So it's in underneath my body essentially, opposed to like a barbell where I have to manipulate it around my body for a successful lift. So to me, this is almost like an easier segue than Olympic lift.
Well, like Corey said too, you don't need to do it with a partner, right? You can do it by yourself. And
Right.
so when there's a concern with an athlete, whatever, obviously maybe doing a partner might not be the best if you think some guy's a knucklehead. But
For sure.
if you're with a friend and you guys are meatheads, and you want to try some kind of, what might seem stupid on the surface, sure, go for it, But again,
I'm in.
Corey started me off with doing this by myself. He had me catching it by myself. How do you do, a self catch? And I think anything of that nature, and that's why people really like Olympic lifts too, where you have that catch and quick absorption when you're in that front rack position of a hang clean, or you're in that stick bottom position of a snatch. Okay, well, let's take that same attribute of a rapid load absorb. And let's find a way to make it really simple. Like maybe I just let go of the kettlebell, or not even let go of it, but relax my lower body, my upper body. Then I'm gonna catch it, air quotes at the bottom, and reverse it and stand back up quickly. Right.
Right.
That's very similar in nature to what we're doing here. And we see this with like a bench press at times where I think Cal Dietz has made this very popular where you have a rapid relaxation and a quick reversal, whether it's doing those oscillations, those slow movements. I mean, sorry, not slow, fast movements off the chest, up, down, over like a very short one-third range of motion. Conceptually, it's very similar in nature. So,
I believe so. Yeah, absolutely.
and again, it's like, how do we use the weight room, especially as, you know, guys who aren't playing anymore, as a way to learn, experience, try new things. You find something that maybe is a little bit of a nugget. Maybe you try 20 really stupid things, but the 21st one you do is worth a damn.
Right.
and then it's worth it because honestly, my numbers don't matter anymore. I play pickup basketball, and I don't really care about my squat and my my lateral shuffle speed. I'm just like, how can I have fun in here and make it enjoyable?
Right.
And I think Vernon Griffith has done a good thing with that as well. With you see him doing the landmine stuff, and people, oh, they're really loving it because he's really, how do I make this enjoyable, fun, unique, and effective? I think Corey, you're doing that same concept right here, right? It's like make no bones about it. This is not like a oh, everyone's doing kettlebell catches and stuff. It's
Right.
it's
The one
you
thing you gotta understand is, and this has been my evolution. I've been very fortunate, but it's all about the environment you're put in, right? So like all this, whatever solutions you come up with, or whatever new wave or whatever, it's got to come from a genuine place. And for me, it was return to play. Like I had to have a solution for my problem, and as long as you have a solution for a problem, that means you have a direction. And so we stumbled upon this on our journey to the direction I was trying to get to, is getting back to being awesome, getting back to being able to jump, run, sprint, go play pickup basketball like you, Max. I can't go do that right now. So I got to find ways to get me back there faster from a global aspect. I can do all the ankle pumps I want and develop all the range of motion and calf raises and all that. But how am I going to experience those impulses faster? I don't know if there's another way. I can get on an Alter G, but there's no load. And that's what I'm looking for the most, is if I can experience the impulse, the velocity with load, I win across the board. No one can tell me, no one can convince me different.
yeah, no, I like the idea of I got a problem. Let's find a solution. I'm not going to argue with what the solution is.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You just need you need a solution. And so um, I think it's be criticizing without a solution's called being an asshole.
Fact.
Right. And if
Fact.
you have solutions aren't easy, and sometimes people have better ones than others, which is why I think Instagram's pretty cool because you get to see everyone's attempt at a solution, and at least they're putting something out there that's totally free,
Right.
and
Right.
doesn't cost anyone any money to look at. You don't need to pay attention to it if you don't like it, or you can take something away from if you do try it. And we didn't just do kettlebell partner passes. We did other drop catch movements where you have, the landmine. You might have a kettlebell in one arm. You might be doing something more traditional, even like a drop catch, deadlift jump or trap bar jump, I should say, not deadlift jump, trap bar, catching quick reversal. So if you guys go onto Corey's page, you'll see him talk about this in a little more detail as well. And it's on a board, which has really kind of drummed up a storm in this social media world. Corey's magic whiteboard. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it's anything else outside of a whiteboard, but yeah, it has caused quite a stir. And Corey, before giving away what that whiteboard is, I want
Yeah.
you to talk a little bit about some of the educational stuff you're putting out. I know you're working on some stuff with that, that unique piece of technology, and
Yeah.
you'll be filming some stuff. And you talked about some micro dosing. Can you let people know who are listening here some of the stuff you're getting into?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it's going to range, or it's going to have a large range. Like it's going to be a lot of variety to it. I mean, it's just like what I use my Instagram for. It's basically what I'm passionate about that day, or once again, the environment I am currently in. So, for instance, if we're in season, then you're probably going to see a lot of in season like lifting. If we're going to be in the off season, you're going to see off season like lifting. So, now that we're in the off season, you're probably going to see a little bit more volume, probably a little bit more intensity with um, and a shorter accumulation of time than you would see us traditionally in an in-season setting. But yeah, with the magic whiteboard, as Max puts it, and
It's
Max,
nothing more than a whiteboard, guys. I don't know what you're talking about with text change. I was there. I thought it was a chalkboard, basically. I'm not sure what anyone was saying. And if you guys haven't seen this, this
mm,
piece of equipment, I'll leave it as the board. We'll call it for now.
we'll call it the
Um,
board. Yeah, so with the
Go
board,
go check out his Instagram and my Instagram. It is awesome. And also, Corey, I want you to talk about the board and how you're using it. Because
right,
what's really cool about it is you took this really interesting piece of technology from the business world. Yes, it's not actually a whiteboard, it's a little more to it than that.
yeah,
And you took it and you said, how I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna apply it to my environment. And like you said, Corey, earlier, it's about your environment. And you took what is a solution to a different problem in a different environment, and you now use it as a solution to a problem in your environment. So I want to hear a little bit too about, how you're using that whiteboard from both like an education standpoint, a program stand, all the above, because it's really freaking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, briefly with the education standpoint, I just want to find small little nuggets that is easy to transcribe, and hopefully I can fit it within a minute and show viewers kind of like what I'm about as far as a string coach. Now, as far as actually how I use it in my workspace, this is where it's really special. So essentially, I got to describe what it is first, Max. So what it is it's an interactive whiteboard, which a lot of you has probably already seen before,
It's a
but
Google Jamboard. We have it posted. I'm just pretending like it's something. It's on my Instagram. If you look at the comments, people all over it. Yeah, it's called Google Jamboard.
a
Um,
Google Jamboard. So it's a Jamboard, obviously by Google, and luckily they bestowed one upon me to tinker on. And so essentially, what it is an interactive whiteboard that does things that obviously a normal whiteboard won't do, but you interact with it like it is a traditional whiteboard. So that's the part that I like the most about it. Is yes, it's technology, but it doesn't feel like technology. And so you get a nice little sty and you get an eraser and it works just like that. So you can write however you want. You have freestyle writing, but the part that Max is talking about that he likes the most, and number, it's probably my favorite feature because I have terrible handwriting. So my athletes, they definitely thank Google for this. But essentially, I write the workout. So let's say we're doing squats today. When I write the word squats in my terrible handwriting, in moments, it transcribes it just like Times New Roman text. So it goes from my terrible handwriting to perfectly legible typewriter, if you will, like font in real time. And
from
so
0 to 100 very quick. Like it's
very quick,
instantly from
literally.
chicken scratch to beautiful cursive, if Corey so choose to do so.
And what's really cool too is how I display our information. So, yes, I write the workout on the board just like anybody else would, but we can use multiple pages. So I can have up to five, actually have up to I think 20 total, but we use anywhere between 1 to 5, depending on how many athletes we're training that day. And I can have individualized workouts for each one of my guys. All they got to do is tab over to their name. Or I can have the team workout on the board and then they tab over. And this is what I have on everybody, on all of our team lists, is a profile pic of all of their faces. So obviously every roster has a photo of each one of the guys individually. And so what's cool about this board is I can use it through the Google search and crop all the images. So I can find anything. For instance, a picture of Max. I could pull up Max's face. I can crop it out and then I could slide it onto the board and slide it wherever I want. And so what we use for that is obviously that's the destination. So that's as soon as they walk into the weight room, they come in, they get their weights, they walk to the board, tap it over. Oh, there's my face. I'm gonna write my weight right there. Okay, beside my face is also my prescribed or my hopeful weights for the day, the weights that we were hoping to achieve, and if not, whatever. But then they go back and then they see the lift. And so this is they come in, they see their face, they record their quote unquote like their weights, we should say, and then they now know going into the lift, this is what I got to do today. And so once we get to the end of the day, they finish their lift, they go to the board, they verify it or they adapt it. So it's rather they did it or they didn't do it. And if they didn't do it, I want to know why. So for instance, if they worked up in the or those work sets didn't look so good, okay, we made a modification. Great. And what's the best part about this? Out of every lift we did for the entire season, I can go back to that session on my app. So you have the Jamboard app that goes to your phone, and I can go through and I can go, oh, November 2nd, what did he do that day? Oh, he had that modification. That's right. That's why his numbers were down. So now I can actually go back in real time. I mean, how many times as a strength coach wrote something up on the whiteboard and it's like, damn, what did we do last week? Or man, that was really cool. I forgot how we did that. Or, that's what I think is really special about it is it can capture my creativity and it freezes it in time. And I can always go back and revisit it. And so me and Max, we can have dialogues and we can have a quote unquote jam session and we can write up all our ideas on a whiteboard. But instead of taking pictures of it and hoping that we can see it later, right? I can just send it to Max. and I can keep it forever. So that's what's really special about this piece of technology.
What's really cool too is Corey can take photos real time, put it on the screen, and show me, "Hey, Max, your form was dog crap. Like, this is why." And we
Yep.
can adjust it here, we can adjust it there, which is extremely powerful and also very cool that Corey is kind enough now to be hopefully doing this once a week on Instagram where he's making these posts, doing his educational kind of tutorials on his
Max
jam
secretly
board.
has a gun to my head about it. Oh, Rev's back. Yeah,
So yeah,
Max.
no, Corey has an awesome tool. Even yeah, oh yeah, by the way, Max, I have this magical whiteboard over here in the corner. Don't tell anyone about it, but it's this thing that I just kind of write some weights on. And I'm like, Corey, what is that thing? He's like, oh yeah, by the way, it does all these 9,000 other things. And Corey starts going on this huge, like, see, Max, your form here's like this. Let me take a picture and let's have look. Here's my ankles like that. And I'm like, oh, Corey, dude, this is unbelievable. And so I have pried a little bit out of him, and so he'll be making some posts on Instagram coming up here with some educational stuff. Corey, so we had two kind of traditionally inflammatory topics here in
Yeah,
the strength conditioning world, and
yeah.
that is
Whiteboard magic and throwing at each other.
well, I was going to say more um, new exercises that are outside of the norm
Mhm.
and technology.
Yes. That's a better way of putting it. Yes.
Everyone likes magic whiteboards. No one likes technology. I think it's interesting. I really appreciate you talking about that. What? Give it to me quickly, because I know you could say this for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Your opinion on some of that, or I guess your mindset of how you embrace these new ideas and how you keep an open mind to seeking out, new technology, new movements. Where does that kind of stem from? I know you mentioned kind of, oh, I have a problem, I need a solution, and well, that might be the case, but you're also very open to the solutions that you can, try out, or I guess the solutions that work. And what are some like advice that you might give to a personal trainer, an athlete, someone who's a weekly gym goer, a veteran strength coach, when it comes to, how do I begin learning in the weight room?
To be honest, to answer that fairly, um, probably the best quote I can give you is everything works and everything doesn't work at the same time. So with that being said, I was anti-hit. I was anti-machines, growing up as a strength coach in my early stages. I'm like, oh, it's got to be Olympic lifts and you got to do it in the most purest form. And there was no other modifications that you can make. And so with that was that very narrow mind, right? And you think that there's like this you have this nostalgia about you, or you have this superiority because you're doing the most purest form of this certain subculture. And to be honest with you, I've switched night and day from that because it ain't who I am; it's who my athletes are. And going back to the point that I brought up earlier, it's gotta come to a solution. Like if I have a problem, there's millions of ways to get to the solution. But the most important to me is how do I get to that solution in the most efficient and effective way possible? Now, if I only have 3 or 4 tools in my tool bag, then I might not be as successful. So I'm open to any and everything. And if you see my weight room, you would understand. I mean, one of the best compliments I've ever got was from a strength coach who came in and said, oh, it was actually Joel from Just Fly Sports Performance Podcast. He comes in and goes, this is like a old master mechanic's garage. And I was like, I don't know what you mean by that. And he goes, well, you have stuff from the old, you have stuff from the new, and you have a specific screwdriver that you need for that specific problem. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. And so that's where a lot of my creativity comes from, because once again, I want an environment that at any moment I can look over to the left and right and be like, oh, that implement might work for that. If I just was in a purist mentality and all we have is squat racks and bars, you know, yeah, of course, it's a hammer. Everything's going to be a nail, right? So that's the issue. Like I can't have that in my population because I work with guys that range from 5'10" to 7 foot tall. And with the plethora of pros that I train, I mean, they're in all sorts of different sports. So how can I say, yeah, that barbell is going to fix all your solutions? That's what, for me, I have to have as many colors on the spectrum. I need to have as many tools in the toolbox, whatever analogy you want to use, because at some point that tool is going to be the most efficient and effective way to get me to my solution.
I couldn't say it better. Well done.
Thank you.
Well said. And I think part of that is too that, and to summarize some of what Corey's spoken about earlier, is he then looks at things in terms of concepts and how can he use a concept to optimize what he's trying to figure out and answer. So when you have that general mindset initially, you can dive into the specifics for an individual versus staying very specific and then trying to rework. So
Absolutely.
Cory,
Absolutely.
thank you for being on here. And guys who are listening here, really appreciate it. And this is kind of, when you guys message me, I listen. I got tons of messages, get Cory back on right away, find a way. I want to hear more of him talking about some of his stuff. I got 1,000 questions on X, Y, and Z. Didn't hurt that we had the magic whiteboard sighting this past weekend. That kind of provoked a lot of it as well. And so, if you guys get excited, because he's about to be posting some stuff here, hopefully on a weekly basis from an educational standpoint, talking about a lot of what he does. Cory, thank you once again for being here.
Hey, no worries. Always a pleasure, Max, and looking forward to next time, brother.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, my man. Cory, dude, and for those who are listening, Cory's got cats all up over the place, by the way. There's like cats in his lap, cats on his head, cats by the window. Not just cats, they're these little Sphinx hairless cats. And so, it's pretty funny. But Cory, you're the man. Appreciate it for coming back on. I'm sure we're going to have you here on again in the near future. Thank you guys for listening. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys. I'm excited for you guys to tune in next time. We have some awesome guests lined up coming in, and take care. Appreciate it.